All right, time for one of my favorite new segments, which is You're Not Crazy, But. And this is where we try to normalize common habits, that like smart adults have, but sometimes we beat ourselves up for, or we think we're crazy about
Hmm.
having them.
Maybe we'll
Um,
normalize it. Maybe not. What is it today, Michael? What do you got?
so this one, in a word, is doom scrolling at night,
Ooh,
even when you hate it. So
guilty.
you're exhausted, you're anxious, and yet you're scrolling. And if you've ever been in bed hating the fact that you're doing it and somehow unable to stop, I assume you're not broken. But I do wonder, like, what doom scrolling is about. Why it's so hard to stop it, and what some things are that like I guess I should say why it's so hard to stop it once you've started, even though
Mhm.
you kind of hate it as it's happening. And then how do you prevent falling down that rabbit hole again?
I mean, this is a great question. The problem is doom scrolling like hits that really basic part of our brain.
Mhm.
And once you make a connection with a part of your brain that I don't say is underdeveloped, but the reality is it's not very sophisticated.
Mhm.
Once you get in that part of your brain and that starts to be activated, your prefrontal cortex, all of that lovely, higher order thinking and reasoning is out the fucking window.
Mhm.
So, doom scrolling particularly hits there, and it's hard to back out of it because we're not using that more elevated part of our thinking and our brain. I don't know. That's my 10,000 foot view,
No,
Dan.
I,
What do you
I,
think?
I I agree with you.
Mhm,
It is a rewarding activity that stimulates some
mhm.
part of our brain. And if we're talking about the curated stuff that's aimed specifically at you, people talk about like one of my kids sent me something, and I sent them something on one of the short form media sources. They're like, "Yeah, I didn't want to look at it because I don't want to fuck up my algorithm." Um,
Right.
so there's an algorithm that is
Mhm.
based on what you like, and the sophistication with which they have crafted these algorithms will send you this thing that you find very stimulated on this frequency. We'll send you this thing you find this stimulated on this frequency, and they fine tune those with the goal of keeping your. Does this sound like a slot machine to you?
Absolutely. And you know the
And
rule of slot machines? The
what's it?
house always wins.
Right,
You're
and
the
that
product, and the house is
and
winning.
yeah, I mean they make their money off of keeping your eyes on the screen, and so they carefully craft these algorithms to feed you what you're likely to be stimulated by at differing levels, at different frequencies that are variable and that pull you in and draw you in and keep you there.
Yeah.
So, and the more of this thing you like, you'll be fed much more of it. The less of this thing, and it's really the sophistication and complexity is there. So part of this is that it hits this part of our brain that's really hard to move away from, and part of it is that it's designed to do that as well,
Right.
and it's very hard to pull away from.
And I will also argue humans are wired to be problem solvers, right? This is part of what we do
Mhm.
with these
Mhm.
extraordinarily big brains that we have. And in order to do that, we have a bias toward negativity. We have a bias toward finding problems. People always come in and say to me, like, I think I'm just such a negative person because, I always find, the reason why this won't work or, that kind of thing. But like my first intervention there is to normalize, of course, this is your brain doing what it's been designed to do. We have to remind ourselves to to find the good things is why good things and gratitude practice is something that
Mhm.
we will talk about in advice because that's not what your brain is wired for.
Yeah.
Survival is dependent on you finding a problem and avoiding it so that you don't die and your species doesn't die out. We need this part
Yeah.
of our evolution, so it's not you being broken. This is your brain taking over and doing what it's supposed to do.
And sometimes what we have to do there is then create for ourselves external limits,
Yes.
because it is very hard in the moment to break away from it. Whether that's a setting on your phone that doesn't allow you to go past a certain amount of time, or something where it can be really hard,
Yes.
and
Well,
we
because
can
there's no
lose more
bottom
time.
to it. There's no
Yeah,
end.
no, there isn't, and we can lose more time than we think we're going to. Yeah,
Mhm.
the amount of content out there is staggering. Um, and we're probably going to be able to find stuff that interests us even without searching, because again, the stuff that interests us finds us.
Yes. One of the more interesting solutions, I guess, or
Hmm.
interventions I've heard for this is if you can set the time limit, great. But another thing that you can do is adjust the color scale of what you're seeing. So if you bring it more to grayscale, it can be less rewarding and stimulating to your brain. And that can help just
But I
decrease
want it to
that.
be rewarding and stimulating.
I know, but if you're trying to get out of the doom scroll, that making it less pleasing to the eye might
Hmm.
be helpful, which
Yeah.
is interesting. I've had clients set a timer. If I'm going to go on my social media, whatever, I'm going to set a timer. I'm not reading, I'm not going to be on it more than 20 minutes, because to your point, like, time goes by in a blink of an eye. So
Yeah.
an external timer or reminder to get off is also
And I
helpful.
will say that where it's especially problematic is in the bed space,
Yes.
because this is so incredibly stimulating. And within the bed space, what we want to do is reserve that bed space for sleep and intimacy. So we're only doing relaxing in the moment, present activities as much as possible. Now, of course, there are exceptions to that, and yes, sometimes you can actually read in bed or watch a TV show in bed or something like that on your own or with a partner, if it's relaxing, comforting, and it's not interfering with your sleep. And there's all sorts of reasons why we don't do it sometimes and do it other times, and they're beyond the scope of today. But doom scrolling in bed almost always involves so much physiological arousal that it interferes with it. It creates this paradigm where the bed space is no longer a place of sleep and relaxation and comfort. Bed
Right.
space is now a place of physiological arousal in a way that's not healthy for the
Right,
brain.
right. By its very name, doom
Yeah,
scrolling is
right.
problematic, and especially in the bed space. So, I would universally tell people, don't doom scroll in bed. If you're going to doom scroll, I suppose do it on the couch, but set a set a reminder to stop before bedtime. You don't want to be that activated before
No,
bedtime.
no.
So, I think thinking about where do you get that information, what kind of information are you keying in on that in that algorithm, and is there maybe a less rewarding way to get it so that you still get the same content without,
Right.
hitting that caveman part of your brain or that lizard part of your brain quite so hard?
Agreed.
So what I'm hearing the takeaway is that doom scrolling isn't curiosity. It's like anxiety wearing a trench coat and an algorithm that has your number. And if you want to change it, that you shouldn't argue with your brain at midnight, but maybe change the setup, make the
Hmm.
scroll harder, make the screen less attractive, make the exit easier, and give yourself permission to be informed tomorrow, I guess.
Oh,
Perfect
yeah,
summary.
yeah. Wow,
A plus.
who needs AI? We have Michael summarizing.
Apparently.
Unless he fed all that into an AI and had it.
I did
No,
not. I was just paying attention to the wisdom that was coming from the
well,
screen at
well
me here.
done,
So
well done.
So,
humans can still synthesize information. It's amazing.
not crazy to doom scroll, but not a good idea to do it.
Yeah,
How's that? The original question. Am I crazy? No.
agreed,
This is your
agreed,
brain doing what it does. But
agreed.
we can step around that in really
Right.
smart, thoughtful ways.
Awesome. Thank you both.